The Greek rocket war death. Every year on the Greek island of Chios, Easter is celebrated with one of the most unusual traditions in the world. It's called Roukatopolemos, which literally means rocket war. On Easter night, two rival churches located on opposite hills fire thousands of homemade rockets at each other's bell towers. The goal is simple: hit the opposing church's bell. For locals, it's a long-standing tradition going back generations. But for anyone watching for the first time, it looks more like a battlefield. As night falls, teams of volunteers launch tens of thousands of rockets into the sky. The air fills with smoke, explosions, and trails of fire streaking across the dark. Most spectators watch from rooftops and balconies nearby. But in April 2017, the celebration turned deadly. A rocket suddenly veered off course. Instead of flying toward the church tower, it shot sideways into a nearby house where people were watching the event from a terrace. The rocket exploded on impact. A 53-year-old man who had been standing outside was struck by the blast. Emergency services rushed to the scene, but his injuries were too severe. He died shortly afterward. Despite the tragedy, the controversial tradition continues every Easter. Supporters say it is an important cultural event, while critics argue the rockets are simply too dangerous to control. The Easter egg hunt. Drowning. For many families, Easter means one simple tradition: the Easter egg hunt. Churches, parks, and community groups organize events where children run across fields searching for brightly colored eggs filled with candy and small prizes. It's usually one of the safest and most innocent celebrations of the holiday. But in April 2014, one Easter egg hunt in Florida ended in tragedy. A local church had organized a large community event on a grassy field near a small lake. Dozens of families attended, and hundreds of plastic eggs were scattered across the area before the children were allowed to start searching. Parents stood around the field watching while kids ran in every direction, laughing and filling their baskets. Among them was a 5-year-old boy who had arrived with his family earlier that morning. Like the other children, he rushed forward as soon as the hunt began, excited to find as many eggs as possible. At some point during the activity, he wandered farther away from the main group. Near the edge of the field was a lake separated only by a short grassy slope. While searching for eggs, the boy moved closer to the water. No one noticed when he slipped. The event was chaotic, with dozens of children running everywhere, and for several minutes nobody realized he was missing. When his family finally began searching for him, volunteers and parents quickly spread across the area calling his name. Then someone spotted something near the lake. Rescue teams were called immediately and pulled the child from the water. Emergency responders attempted CPR on the shore before transporting him to a nearby hospital. But it was too late. He was pronounced dead shortly afterward. What had been planned as a joyful Easter celebration for families ended in silence and shock. The accident led organizers of many similar events across the region to begin implementing stricter safety measures, including barriers around nearby water and designated supervision zones. The Easter Bunny Heatstroke death. Easter events often feature one character above all others: the Easter Bunny. Shopping malls, community centers, and parks regularly hire actors to wear oversized bunny costumes so children can take photos and receive candy during Easter celebrations. The costumes are large, padded, and heavily insulated. They are designed to look friendly and cartoonish, but inside them, temperatures can rise quickly. In April 2014, a shopping center in Virginia organized a full day of Easter activities. Families lined up throughout the afternoon so their children could meet the Easter Bunny and take photos. The man inside the costume had already been working for several hours. The suit included a thick padded body, gloves, boots, and a large foam rabbit head that covered his entire face. Ventilation inside the costume was minimal. As the day went on, the temperature outside climbed higher. Inside the costume, it became dangerously hot. Witnesses later said the performer continued posing for photos with children while sweating heavily and appearing increasingly exhausted. But the line of families kept growing, and the event continued. At one point, while greeting another group of children, the man suddenly collapsed. At first, some parents thought it was part of the act. But when he didn't move, staff members rushed over and removed the large rabbit head. He was unconscious. Emergency services arrived and attempted to resuscitate him, but he later died from severe heat stroke caused by prolonged exposure to extreme heat inside the costume. What had been planned as a cheerful Easter event ended with paramedics surrounding a collapsed performer in a bunny suit, while shocked families and children watched nearby. The Easter Carnival ride collapse. In many towns around the world, Easter weekend is also the start of spring fairs and traveling carnivals. Temporary amusement rides are set up in parking lots, parks, and town squares. Bright lights, loud music, spinning rides, and food stalls create the atmosphere of a celebration. But unlike permanent theme parks, many of these rides are assembled and dismantled constantly, moving from city to city. In April 2019, a large Easter fair opened in Brazil, attracting hundreds of families during the holiday weekend. One of the main attractions was a large mechanical ride similar to a giant rotating swing. Riders sat in suspended seats while the machine lifted them high into the air and spun them in wide circles. Throughout the evening, long lines formed for the ride. Late in the night, another group of passengers climbed aboard. The restraints were secured and the ride began its cycle, slowly lifting the seats upward before accelerating into its full rotation. At first, everything appeared normal, but as the ride gained speed, witnesses began to hear a loud metallic cracking sound coming from the central support structure. Seconds later, the main arm of the ride suddenly failed. The entire rotating structure collapsed. Seats filled with passengers slammed violently toward the ground as metal components twisted and broke apart. People waiting nearby ran in panic while others rushed forward to try to help those trapped in the wreckage. Emergency crews arrived quickly, but the damage had already been done. 2 riders died from their injuries and several others were seriously hurt. Investigators later determined that the ride had suffered structural failure, likely caused by inadequate inspection and fatigue in the metal support system. The accident led to the immediate closure of the attraction and sparked renewed scrutiny of traveling carnival rides operating during large holiday festivals. The giant Easter egg roll crush. Many countries celebrate Easter with unusual traditions involving eggs. One of the most famous is the Easter egg roll, where decorated eggs are rolled down hills as part of a festive competition. In some places, the tradition has evolved into large public events with oversized decorative eggs used for demonstrations and ceremonies. During an Easter festival in Eastern Europe in 2012, organizers decided to create a centerpiece for the event, a massive wooden Easter egg built as a decorative attraction for the celebration. The egg was enormous. It stood several feet tall and weighed hundreds of kilograms. The idea was to display it at the top of a grassy hill before rolling it a short distance as part of the ceremony. A large crowd gathered nearby to watch. Families, photographers, and festival visitors surrounded the hill while organizers prepared the demonstration. But as the egg was positioned near the slope, something went wrong. The massive structure suddenly began rolling earlier than expected. Because of its size and weight, once it started moving, it was almost impossible to stop. The giant egg quickly picked up speed as it rolled down the hill directly toward the crowd. People scattered in every direction, trying to get out of the way, but one spectator standing near the bottom of the hill didn't have time to react. The heavy wooden egg struck him with full force. Emergency services arrived soon after, but the injuries were catastrophic. He died at the scene. What had been planned as a playful Easter spectacle centered around a symbolic holiday decoration ended with a fatal accident caused by an object that was never meant to become a moving hazard. The Easter egg hunt ATV accident. Large Easter egg hunts often require a lot of preparation. When hundreds or even thousands of eggs need to be hidden across large fields, organizers sometimes use vehicles to scatter them quickly before children are allowed onto the area. In April 2017, a community in Texas organized a massive Easter egg hunt on a wide open property outside town. Families had gathered early in the morning, and volunteers were still spreading eggs across the field before the event officially began. One of the organizers was using an ATV, a small 4-wheeled vehicle, to drive across the muddy ground while tossing plastic eggs into the grass. The terrain had become slippery after rain the night before. Witnesses said the ATV was moving at moderate speed while the driver tried to cover as much ground as possible before the start of the hunt. But as the vehicle crossed a small slope in the field, the wheels suddenly lost traction. The ATV skidded sideways. Within seconds, it tipped over. The vehicle rolled and landed directly on top of the driver. People nearby rushed toward the scene while emergency services were called. Volunteers attempted to lift the ATV and pull him free, but the weight of the machine had already caused severe injuries. Paramedics arrived shortly afterward, but he was pronounced dead at the scene. The egg hunt itself never began. Hundreds of plastic eggs remained scattered across the field, waiting for children who would never be allowed to run out and collect them that day. The chocolate egg eating death. Easter is one of the biggest chocolate holidays in the world. Every year, stores fill their shelves with enormous chocolate eggs, and some events even organize eating challenges centered around them. In 2018, a pub in the United Kingdom decided to host an Easter promotion to attract customers. The challenge was simple. Participants had to eat a giant Easter chocolate egg as fast as possible. The egg was much larger than a normal chocolate treat, weighing several pounds and made of thick, solid chocolate. Contestants were encouraged to break it into pieces and eat it within a limited time while the crowd watched. One participant was determined to win. Witnesses later said he began eating the chocolate extremely quickly, breaking off large chunks and swallowing them without chewing much. At first, the crowd cheered as the contest continued. Then suddenly, he stopped. He began coughing and grabbing at his throat. Large pieces of chocolate had become lodged in his airway. People nearby realized something was wrong as he struggled to breathe. Staff members attempted to help while emergency services were called. Paramedics arrived and attempted to clear the obstruction and perform resuscitation, but the blockage had already cut off his air supply for too long. He was pronounced dead shortly afterward. The event was immediately canceled, and the pub discontinued the Easter eating challenge following the incident. The giant Easter decoration collapse. In April 2013, a town in Central Europe organized a large Easter festival in its main square. The centerpiece of the event was a giant, decorative Easter egg, several meters tall, built from a metal frame and colorful panels. Throughout the afternoon, visitors gathered around it to take photos. Families stood beneath the decoration while children ran across the square carrying baskets filled with chocolate eggs. But as the crowd grew, the structure began to shift. Witnesses later said the large egg had been designed mainly as a decoration, not to handle people leaning against its base for pictures. Without warning, the support frame suddenly gave way. The massive Easter egg tipped forward and collapsed directly into the crowd. People nearby tried to move out of the way, but the metal structure fell too quickly. Several visitors were struck as the decoration crashed onto the pavement. A 45-year-old man who had been standing near the front of the display suffered severe head injuries when the structure hit him. Paramedics arrived within minutes and attempted to treat him at the scene, but the injuries were too serious. He died shortly afterward, turning what had been planned as a festive Easter attraction into the site of a fatal accident. And that brings us to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like and help boost the video. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. See you soon. Bye.